Yo, what's going on, Arkansas Razorback fans? Welcome to Tusk Talk with Ty. Got some edited content here for you. Thought you guys might like this, especially those of you who don't really watch the hour-long live shows, but you want something a little bit more cut down. So why not this? These videos are not possible without Patreon supporters, and of course without the show's sponsors, Direct Service Overhead, the Garage Door Company, Apex Tattoo Studio located in Rogers, Arkansas, and of course the Odd Soul Craft Bar and Pizzeria. So without all those fine people involved, none of this content is really possible. So special shout out to them. All right, let's get into this video. On3.com has an article they just published, I believe today, as a matter of fact, written by Matt Zinitz. Now, when I say today, at the time of this recording, which is April 25th in the afternoon, Matt Zinitz publishes an article titling it 15 Defensive Spring Practice Standouts You Need to Know. And on this list, of course, there's multiple SEC players, but one player in particular that makes this list is none other than Arkansas Razorback Junior defensive end Landon Jackson. He goes on to say in the article, Jackson, who transferred to Arkansas from LSU last year, is primed for a breakthrough season after finishing with 23 tackles, 3 sacks last year in his first season with the Razorbacks. Quote, he's on a different level this year, an Arkansas source said of the 6'7", 270-pound Jackson. I know there's a lot of talk about Landon Jackson being the star on the defense, going into the 2023 season, or at least one of maybe a couple of guys that could really stand out this year. Of course, we know they've got Christopher Pupal, who's a guy who I don't know what to expect from him in terms of production, but I think it's going to be pretty high. He's probably going to be in that category in the top 3 in total tackles, and I expect he's going to rack up some sacks this year. But Landon Jackson is the guy. When you go back to spring camp, everyone was talking about him. We saw it a little bit in the scrimmage they had for the public. Now you're starting to see this followed up with that off-season hype, which is some of the stuff that you're getting out of what he did and what he was able to show in that spring scrimmage. You're starting to see the after effects of that, right? You're starting to see a little bit of hype behind Landon Jackson. I mean, he had a good spring camp. I was there. He looked really good. Did I watch him as much as maybe I was watching some of the freshmen or watching Dan Enos coach the quarterbacks? No. But I certainly saw him in the scrimmage. I thought he looked really good. Even when he wasn't making plays around the quarterback, he was still a problem. He's a handful for any offensive lineman to deal with. He looks to me like he's got a little bit more pop. He's a little faster off the snap. Definitely, if you're going to tell me he's not 270 pounds, I would have guessed 265. He looks the part. More so than maybe he did last year. Not by a large margin, but by enough that you can kind of tell. And Landon, I fully believe everything goes according to plan. If everything that happened through spring camp translates into summer, during workouts and then into fall camp, he continues to rise in the stages of development, the typical off-season stages of development. We've already gotten past spring camp. Like I just said, you got to get through strength conditioning over the summer, and then you're going to have fall camp. If everything falls into place as it should for Landon and the rest of that defense, he can have a pretty good year. Now, I'm not saying he's a top 10 draft pick. I'm not saying he's not going to be, like Drew Sanders, where we're talking about him being a potential first rounder. He could. I certainly think his ceiling, if you want my honest opinion, it's one of the highest among anybody on that roster on the defensive side of the ball. I think Landon's going to have a pretty good year for the Hogs. I would say if they're going to do an offensive list, if I were to do an offensive list, we've got Jackson on the defense, and I think you could probably, my short list on defense, maybe that's another video. Maybe I'll talk about that in a live and then do another edited video for it or something. But I definitely could name a couple of other people on the defensive side of the ball to make that short list over there. But on the offensive side of things, I would definitely argue that Centennia, the Fayetteville Bulldog, the track star out of high school. This is a dude that stood out to me most of spring camp. Not all of spring camp, but quite a bit of it. I mean, especially there towards the end. And again, you could name 2 or 3 other players that maybe got off to a slow start but ended up having a pretty damn good spring camp, if you want my opinion. But Centennial, who we got to see a little bit of that, right? I mean, he was targeted 3 times in the scrimmage. He caught all 3 balls for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. What does this mean when you're talking about Jackson, when you're talking about Centennial, when you're talking about anybody who had a net positive spring camp? Like I mentioned a minute ago, does that mean that all this is going to translate into the regular season? Of course not. But these guys are off to a really good start. Centennial would definitely make my short list, no matter if we're talking offense or defense. He's on my short list of players that stood out to me during spring camp, as is Jackson as well. So there you have it. Bing, bang, boom, baby. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And again, shout out to the show sponsors. I'll see you guys on the next one.